All right, good morning, everyone, and welcome to another edition of our Coping with COVID webinar series. I'm here in my Beenken bunker at home today, and I'm joined by Dave Lentell, who's one of the main folks at the SBA here for the state of Iowa on the lending programs. Dave has been around the SBA for quite a long time in Iowa. He's seen other disasters and been a part of the lending and programming that has come out for those programs over time. Most notably, some of you listening today may have experienced some of the flood monies that came out either from the Missouri River flooding or our Cedar River and Mississippi River flooding, 2008 flooding that basically everybody flooded. Anyway, Dave is going to talk to us today about the current status of where the SBA programs are for SBA loans. He's going to talk a little bit about the qualifications involved, requirements, and how these SBA loans kind of play with other loans and grant programs that are available at the state level. Who qualifies, who doesn't qualify, and a little bit on how you can calculate how much you qualify for. So with that, Dave, maybe we could get started. Who does qualify if we start right there?
Sure. As far as qualifications, any small business and most nonprofit organizations qualify for these economic injury disaster loans. They are essentially, kind of the best way to look at them is thinking of them as a working capital loan. They are to be used to meet business expenses, monthly business expenses that would have been able to have been met by the business or the nonprofit had the disaster not occurred. They can be used for things like payroll, um, paying on your monthly debts. If you have a commercial loan, SBA or otherwise out there, and you've got a monthly loan payment that you need to make, that's part of that as well. Rent, utilities, whatever your regular monthly expenses are, these funds can be used for that. The interest rate is 3.75% for small businesses and 2.75% for nonprofits. Churches and charitable organizations and businesses that are involved with gambling, so racetracks, casinos, that kind of thing, would not be eligible. But again, most other small businesses and most private nonprofits are eligible to apply. Again, 3.75 interest rate for small businesses, and that's on a 30-year maturity.
Yep. And can you talk a little bit about what doesn't qualify as maybe what what might be considered a business expense that I'm thinking about, like purchases, inventory, equipment, I don't
Right.
know,
You can't go
remodeling.
out and buy, yeah, you can't go out and buy new equipment. You can't remodel. If you have a monthly inventory that you have coming in, that you have to pay for, you can use it for that. You know,
Okay.
like, um, but if you decide, hey, I'm going to go out and buy some additional inventory, that is very, you know, and I'm just throwing this out there. I'm going to go out and buy a whole bunch of toilet paper, if you can
Sure.
find it, um, because you know, I can sell this in my store and know that I'm going to make a profit on it. That's, you can't use it for that. It's got to be for what your typical monthly expenses were prior to the disaster. One of the big questions we get is, okay, can I use the economic injury disaster loan to pay off existing debt? No, you can't. So if you have a commercial loan, let's say it's a $100,000 commercial loan, you can't pay off the $100,000 commercial loan. But as I mentioned, the monthly payments on that commercial loan, you can use the funds to make those monthly payments.
Okay, so we can't use this as a refinancing opportunity. but
No,
we can
the
use it as a temporary way to cover the outgoing cash flow on our current notes.
right. And the only option, caveat on refinancing would be if your lending institution makes you what would be considered a bridge loan. Let's say they do a $25,000 short-term working note to you to get you by for right now,
Yep.
while you're in the process of applying for the economic injury disaster loan. Once you get the loan funds, they could be used to pay the bank back for the bridge loan. Any financing that you go out, any temporary financing you go out and get, um, that's directly related to the disaster recovery,
Okay.
you
So
can
anything
use to
on credit
repay.
cards or financial institutions that I've grabbed in the last couple of weeks because of
Yeah,
COVID, I can refinance that money.
right. But if you're going to use a credit card, you definitely want to use a business credit card, and you definitely want to keep receipts to demonstrate, you know, that you were spending it on, that you were using the credit card for disaster related, because
Okay.
they're going to get kind of picky about the credit cards. As far as determining how much you qualify for, what we're going to look at is the financial information that you provide to us. Um, there's not a set loan amount that you are requesting. We're going to take a look at the personal financial statements. We're going to look at the credit. We're going to look at the repayment ability as well. But really, what we're going to look at primarily is what were your normal monthly expenses before this happened. We're going to determine what your normal monthly expenses were, and then right now, what I'm being told is we're kind of looking at a 6-month time period. That may change as we go down the road. A lot depends on how long this thing lasts as far as economic impact. But we're going to look at uh, we're going to look at February and March definitely, as far as quote unquote actual economic damage, and then we're going to project out another 4 months. So if your
Okay.
monthly operating expenses are determined to be $10,000, you're going to get a loan in the ballpark of 60,000.
How about so that makes sense, your normal expenses that you can demonstrate. What about for folks who have already started to do some layoffs or voluntary separations or um, things of that nature as far as cutting back on payroll, cutting back on expenses that they all of a sudden deem are no longer necessary or something like that? Is that easily factored into the application?
Well, again, what we're going to look at is what were your monthly expenses prior to the disaster. So, if
Okay.
it was $10,000 prior to the disaster, that's what we're going to base it on. If you've laid folks off, if you've made some other changes, if you've deferred a loan, um, and let's say your monthly expenses right now, you got them cut down to 8,000. We're not gonna reduce your loan to 8,000 as far as what your current monthly expenses are. We are going to look at what your monthly expenses were prior to the disaster.
Okay. All right. That makes sense. And you said nonprofits are qualify here. Do they typically qualify under 7A and 504 structures for lending?
They do not. They do not. Economic injury disaster loans are really designed to be a second tier after the fact type of disaster assistance. They're usually used for in the case where you have an actual physical disaster like a hurricane, a
Okay.
tornado, a flood. Your business has been shut down for 2 months. Maybe you got some direct assistance from FEMA. Maybe you qualified for a physical disaster loan to rebuild your business physically after a flood. And now we need to account for the economic damage to your business. You were shut down for 2 months. Your normal business expenses were 10,000 a month. We're going to give you $20,000 to help you get back on your feet from you know the ability the inability to repay your monthly expenses during the 2 months that you were shut down. Again, related to a physical disaster, it's something where we come in after the fact. Um, in this case, we're trying to use it as a first level immediate response until some
Okay.
other things get put into place. But as you said, um, typically with SBA disaster loans, from a physical side, homeowners, renters, businesses of all types, including nonprofits, can qualify for those physical disaster loans. Homeowners and renters don't qualify for economic injury, but nonprofits still do.
Okay. Okay. So that's how that works. So that that segment or that group of folks who maybe normally wouldn't think of the SBA as a lending source certainly should be encouraged to look at it now. And maybe that kind of, or go ahead.
Right, and uh, that's a great way to lead to a very important point that I want to make. Regardless of what you're hearing about some of the other things that may be coming out, regardless of other sources, from state, local, whatever, we highly encourage anyone who thinks they may be eligible to apply for these economic injury disaster loans, because uh, you really should know what you can qualify for through EIDL, um, so that you can make informed decisions about what type of disaster assistance is the best fit for you. Um,
Perfect. And so with that,
these
go
loans
ahead.
go out 30 years, and there's probably not going to be, even some of the new things that are coming as part of this CARES Act package, which I can't really talk too much about today. Um, but even some of the new stuff that's coming out from there probably isn't going to be on a 30-year maturity. So, you want to be able to compare apples to apples when deciding which program is a best fit for you.
Right. So if we kind of say, if I say what you're not saying a little bit, not necessarily, but if there are things that come down the pike that look better or look like a sweeter deal from an interest rate standpoint or a forgiveness standpoint, or lack of requiring less collateral, that's one thing we haven't really talked about with these loans yet, but I can apply for this loan and turn it down and get the next thing, or maybe I can even apply for this loan and get it, and if something better comes down the pike, federally or state level, I could always pay this off or whatever it might look like and take that money.
Possibly, just because you get approved. Let's say you get approved for the 60,000 that we've been using as a hypothetical.
Yep.
You don't have to take the funds. I'm not entirely sure how long you have to decide whether you're going to take the funds or not. The deadline for applying for the loans is December 2020, so I would assume that if you have an approval prior to December 2020, you probably need to make your decision by then, whether you're going to take the
Okay.
funds or not.
Okay.
Uh, if you choose not to take the funds, you just let us know and say, hey, I want to cancel the approval. I found something else that's a better fit. Uh, if you take the funds now and then you find something else better down the road, um, I know with the CARES Act from the SBA side, there may be the ability to refinance an economic injury disaster loan with the 7A program aspect of the CARES Act. I don't want to get into the details on that. I'm just saying there may be
Yep.
a possibility of doing that. If you were to apply for one of the state grants that are out there and get those grants, like say you got 25,000,
Yep.
um, you would need to send 25,000 back to SBA if you had already taken the EIDL loan, because that's an outside source. Um,
And those
so,
two organizations will be talking closely with each other and will know, you gotten this reward or this award and that kind of thing. And so,
actually, it's up to the borrower to notify SBA when if you take the funds as part of the loan acceptance paperwork. There's a section in there where you have to uh, agree to inform SBA if you get additional financing from an outside source. You have to let us know so that we can then make that determination if there needs to be return of funds back to us.
Okay. Okay. Another question, I don't know if it really follows in here, but um, my experience has always been that with SBA lending, you're working with a financial institution, bank, credit union, et cetera, CDC, whatever it might be, to get the SBA lending 7A or 504. With this type of lending, it looks like I apply myself online from the comfort of my own home, so to speak, or business, and I don't need to involve the financial institution. But maybe
You
you can
don't need,
clarify that.
yeah, you don't need to involve the financial institution. It's a direct loan from the federal government. Um, so we're collecting the information directly from you, and the funds are deposited in your account directly from the federal government. So unlike some of the programs you're hearing about that are going to be coming out soon through that CARES Act, they're not going to flow through the banks. It's a direct loan from the federal government.
Okay.
Um, but it may be wise to involve your lending institution just because they may be able to help you with some of the financial language uh,
Hmm.
that's part of that application. Right now, I do want to manage some expectations for folks who may be applying today. Our website was down all day yesterday. For lack of a better term, it's jury rigged right now, where you have to download the app, fill it out by hand, scan it in, and then upload it and email it to us. So you may have seen some information out there about actually filling out the application online, registering a username and password for the system.
Right.
That's not available right now, and I don't know when we're going to have that back. Uh, so, but again, to answer your question, yeah, you're applying directly to SBA. One thing I hadn't mentioned, and I know that you had brought it up, and I want to circle back to it, is collateral.
Yeah.
Collateral is not a deal breaker if it's not available, but if it is available, it needs to be pledged unless the loan is 25,000 or less. 25,000 or less, we don't require collateral. Over 25,000, we're going to look at business assets only. We changed the rules on that for this disaster. Uh, for folks who may have gotten an idle loan, with the 2008 floods, you may have heard that we were requiring folks to pledge
Yep.
personal real estate. So if you
Yep.
if you owned a home, you had to pledge it if there wasn't collateral coverage. We are not requiring uh, pledging of personal assets as collateral. We're looking just at business assets.
Okay. Okay. Does that factor? Well, and the biggest factor really is looking at your monthly expense history and projecting that forward, because this is looked at as working capital loans.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah, and sorry to cut you off.
no, you're
I
fine.
um that's what we're going to look at as far as loan amount.
Yep.
But the primary determining factor in whether you get the loan or not is going to be your credit and your repayment ability, and that is based on what your business looked like prior to the disaster.
Sure.
So if you had good credit and your cash flow was great prior to January 31st, 2020, um, you're probably going to get something from SBA.
Hmm.
If your business was struggling before this, your credit wasn't the best, and I don't have a specific credit number to give you. That's a moving target at all times. Um, if your credit wasn't the best prior to the disaster, you were struggling with cash flow, then it may be more difficult to qualify.
Okay. All right. Perfect. And one thing I'm hearing about with these loans, even though they carry an interest rate, it's first of all, it's not that high to begin with, 3.75. But what they do carry as a big plus for folks that are looking at this is the amortization is over 30 years rather than a a 5-year balloon or 7-year or 10-year note or whatever it might be. Is that correct? And that's maybe why you're encouraging business owners to at least apply.
Yes. Again, you want to be able to compare programs. Like I said, you don't have to take the funds right away, but you want to be able to compare programs. Okay, you know, hypothetically looking at some of the aspects of the 7A program that may be coming out through the new CARES Act, those are probably going to have a 10-year maturity. Okay, so if you get a better interest rate through the 7A CARES than through the economic injury disaster loan, you got to do the math on the amortization and see, okay, well, what are my monthly payments going to be? Is it going to be better to have a 30-year note at a
Yeah.
slightly higher interest rate, or is it going to be better to have a lower interest rate but just a 10-year maturity? You want to be able to make those comparisons. The other thing I would say is on that 3.75% interest rate. We've gotten a lot of questions about that. Well, the effective Fed rate is 0. Why are these loans at 3.75%?
Yeah.
That's a statutory set amount at 3.75. It could change. I haven't heard that it's going to, but it could change. And I would hope that if they say hypothetically reduce that interest rate on the idle loans, that they would apply that reduction
Grandfather those.
retroactively
Yeah.
to everybody. The other thing to keep in mind is that repayment on these loans is automatically deferred for 1 year on the economic
Oh, it
injury
is.
disaster loans. It is. Yep.
Oh, wow. Okay. Okay. Um, let's see here. Maybe I'll just take a minute quickly to mention we are live right now. So if you're watching us right now, we're live. You can ask your questions if you have any. Of Dave, he's been in the SBA world a long, long time and knows these loans inside out and has seen different disasters. Unfortunately, I guess, or fortunately, he's seen a lot of other disaster loan programs in the past. So please ask your questions if you have them. I'm Dan Beenken with the University of Northern Iowa, and our programming is here to serve and help in any way we can to small businesses across the state who are feeling the pain from this recent crisis. Yeah, if you have any questions, get on our websites. You could just directly call us. Maybe the easiest way is 319-273-Iowa. And call anytime. We'll be happy to help you in any way we can or point you in the direction of great resources like Dave and others that we know. So with that, I got a couple more questions of my own here, Dave, and then and one that came in through our Facebook channel that I want to address too. But
Sure.
that one is on fees. Typically with 7A 504 products, there is a fee a fee structure that's involved with those notes. I'm just curious, is that what does the fee structure look like on these? Is that kind of why it's
No fees.
okay?
There's no cost to apply for the loans, and there are no fees on the economic injury disaster loans. I don't know what, if any, fees there may be on some of the new things coming down, but with the economic injury disaster loan, there are no fees. And while you were giving out your contact info, just a reminder that to get more information on our disaster loan programs and to apply for the loans, even using the jury-rigged system right now, it's sba.gov/disaster. If you have questions, we encourage folks to contact our disaster customer service center at 1-800-659-2955. As you can imagine, they are absolutely overwhelmed right now with inquiries. There's 30 million small businesses in the nation, and just about all of them have been harmed to some degree by this and are looking for help. So you may want to email disaster loan customer service at sba.gov to ask your question. You will get an automated response with a lot of just general information back, but someone will follow up with you if you have a more specific question that wasn't able to be answered by the auto response.
Perfect. Thanks, Dave. We'll be sure to leave that on the archive version, the phone number. And I also want to mention too that uh, the SBA, of course, has sister organizations in the state of Iowa that their primary focus is on helping you kind of answer some of the questions about, are these loans right for you, and how should you be managing your cash flow, and helping you through these incredibly difficult times. The small business development centers of Iowa are an amazing resource for that. I think their URL is iowasbdc.org. We'll leave that on here as well. I believe there are 15 or 16 centers across the state, so there's probably one not too far from your backyard, and certainly they are available to help you through this process. I know that Dave has met with them, and his team from SBA has talked with them about these programs, and so they also know quite a bit about them. And then there's the SCORE program in Iowa, has chapters across the state, SCORE, and that is a volunteer program of former business executives and business owners who help mentor businesses. They're another great resource. There's also the Iowa Women's Business Center, and we'll leave links to all those organizations on our website. And I'm probably missing one or two as I'm talking here. I apologize, but we'll list as many as we can with the archive of this, just so that you know that there are other entities that can help answer some of these questions if you do get a busy signal with the SBA, or some frustration with their website. Anything you want to add to that part of things, Dave?
No, that's some great information, and those are our three primary resource partners, and the SBDCs especially are very familiar with the disaster, the programs that we have available. They've been involved in 2008 over in eastern Iowa. They were involved the last couple of years in western Iowa, and then certainly the floods of '93. A lot of the folks are still around from that, so. They've got a lot of experience in assisting, unfortunately, a lot of experience in assisting small businesses through situations uh, like this. But just bear in mind that no one has seen anything to this unprecedented level before. And they are also dealing with social distancing and those kinds of things. So, none of those resource partners are probably going to meet with you in person, but rather it's a Zoom meeting, a phone call, email, whatever. They're available to assist you.
Okay. How about Dave, if we talk a little bit about time frames, and I don't know if you already touched on it or not, but let's say I'm in some dire need right now. I've got the wolves at the door, or whatever it might be, or I've got bills paid, or I'm looking at having to let go of some folks. I don't want to do that. I want to keep them on my payrolls. I want to keep them active with healthcare, et cetera. What kind of time frame are you telling folks for these, for maybe
Yeah,
when money may be running out?
for the idle loans, what they're telling us right now is 2 to 3 weeks for a decision after submission of a completed loan package, and then an additional week to get the loan funds deposited. So you might be looking at 3 to 4 weeks. I realize that's a lifetime right now for many people. So you know continue to apply for those, get in line, get in the queue, um, get your loan app in, so that, at the end of that 2 to 3 week period, what is going to be available to you, but continue to take a look at things that you may qualify for, such as those grants through the state to help get you by a little faster. I don't know what their timeline is. Um, you know, continue talking to your lender to see if they may be interested in a short-term solution for you that they could do right away, and then perhaps pay off with the economic injury disaster loan once you get it. And certainly stay in touch with your lender about these new programs that we're going to be rolling out that are going to involve SBA and SBA participating lenders, again, to try to get money out faster than the economic injury disaster loan program is currently allowing us to do.
Okay, all right, that's great information. And Dave, you just mentioned the Iowa programming. I believe that's called the Small Business Relief Grant Program. If we have people watching this who haven't heard about that yet, you should absolutely check in on that. That's got the G word attached to it, grant. I believe it's between $5,000 and $25,000 in relief that they are providing to companies, so long as you have, I think it's 2 employees and no more than, I can't remember if there's a cap on employment.
25.
Okay,
25.
thank you,
Yep.
Dave. And I know the deadline for those is the end of the month. Which isn't that far away anymore. It's next Tuesday. That's another great resource to look at as far as how to kind of make ends meet right now and keep things going. So that money is there. There's also a TSB program focused on minority-owned, women-owned businesses that are smaller, that are sole proprietors. Similar details, and you can find that information at iowaeconomicdevelopment.com/relief grants. We'll put some of those links up too. One of our programs here at UNI is called Iowa SourceLink, and we have a page on there focused on COVID relief and the programming and resources available to folks right now. And I think that's a great place for people to kind of get a lot of business assistance help. It's iasourcelink.com. Patrick was on earlier, kind of helping introduce and kick things off for us, and he's our man behind the scenes today, helping run our webinars today at 10 and then again at 2. And he runs our SourceLink program and has put a ton of time into capturing all the different programs, be it financial or otherwise, for businesses to look at. Our webinar series yesterday, we talked about some of the unemployment law changes that have come about because of COVID. So there are things out there, and it's really pertinent that you as business owners are looking into those things and trying to get the help that you need. Again, if you want to contact our programming, we are at advanceiowa.com, or you can call us anytime at 319-273 Iowa. Dave, if let's see here, if is there anything else that you kind of want to talk to about this program specifically, in regards to what business, I think if we wrap here, your main message, it sounds like,
Yeah,
is apply, right?
Yep, that is our main message. Apply. Bear in mind things are changing rapidly. So there may be changes to the program. There may be new programs coming down. But regardless of what else is out there, apply for these economic injury disaster loans so you know what you could potentially qualify for and have the opportunity to accept if you choose to do so.
And if
We appreciate everything that you guys are doing there at UNI to help small businesses get through this disaster. We've got 260,000 some small businesses in the state of Iowa, and obviously, like I said, about the 31 million total in the United States. Just about everybody has been impacted to some degree. So we appreciate working together with you guys to get some information out there today, and thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, Dave. Maybe one thing before I wrap, you're also the guru on paperwork with SBA, I would say, and those kinds of things for Iowa. When I think a common either misconception or stereotype or whatever might be that, when you go down the road of SBA lending, there's a lot of paperwork involved. or yeah, and not that there's something to compare that to necessarily. What's a lot, but um, when we're looking at this idle program and it's online based, it looked to me from what I had seen when I was able to get online yesterday or the day before to actually see it, it's not that complicated, not that complex of an application process. Could you kind of give some color to that?
Yeah, the Form 5, which you can only download and fill out by hand right now until they get the website fixed, is really only about 5 pages worth of information. And then that's all we're asking for right now. But, we may come back and ask for things like a personal financial statement, um, request for tax transcripts. We need to be able to go to IRS and just confirm that you paid your taxes and what the amount of that was, because that helps us paint that financial picture. But
Yep.
really, we're trying to streamline the amount of information that we're asking for from potential borrowers, so that we can move this through the system as quickly as possible. Uh, but the information we're asking for wouldn't be any different for the most part than any other loan that you would apply for.
Okay, perfect. All right. I'm looking at the website now as we talk, and I can see quickly here the Form 5 that you just mentioned, and it is a downloadable version right now, not a more interactive type of thing.
Right. The under the old website, which is supposed to be back up soon. 24 to 48 hours is what I've been told, but it could be longer. You actually fill out the application within the online system. Here right now, like I said, they have it jury rigged, so you've got to download it, uh, fill it out, scan it, upload it, add your email, and send it off to us, and then somebody will follow up with you. But there's actually two versions of the Form 5. There's the Form 5 for the Form 5C is for sole proprietorships. The
Oh, I
Form
see. Okay.
5 is
Yep.
is for all other types of businesses, including nonprofits.
Okay. Okay. Cool. So there is an opportunity for the sole props as well. There's not an employee limitation or minimum that you have to.
No, no, and real quick on that Form 5C, it says home or sole proprietorship loan
Yep.
application. There's going to be some places on that 5C where it's going to ask you about physical losses. Just leave those sections blank. This is specifically for economic injury losses.
Okay. Okay. That's a good point. Thank you. Um, well, there's additional forms on there as well for some of the other programming. Uh, we're not going to get into that alphabet soup, but
No, those are just things that we may come back and ask for. We were
okay.
asking for that information within the application system. Obviously, right now with the website down, we can't do that. So we're just saying we may come back and ask you to fill out the following additional forms as a supplement to the Form 5 or 5C that you're sending in right now.
Okay. Okay. Great. Well, we want to keep these short and informative and to the point. Um, Dave, grateful for your time. I know that you are incredibly busy right now. Unfortunately, I hope they're getting some more help for you. To our business owners out there, please know there are resources available either at the SBA, the Small Business Development Centers, the Women's Business Center for Iowa, SCORE, and then our resources at UNI, of course, as well, are always available to you through the Center for Business Growth and Innovation. You can find us at advanceiowa.com or 319-273-IOWA, and we will absolutely provide contact information for the SBA, for Dave's office as well when we post this archive. So thank you for your attention, and to all the business owners out there, please know that we're all concerned, thinking about you, and trying to find ways to help. So please contact us if you can. Dave, thank you again so much for your time, and good luck. Good luck with everything you've got going forward here as you guys prepare for all this volume you're going to experience.
Thank you, Dan, and best wishes to you and to all the small business owners out there. We know you're going through a lot, and we'll do everything that we can to help you in a timely fashion.
Cool. Thanks, Dave. Take care.